Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our second annual summit. We're very happy today to have Viktoria Kirchhoff with us. She's based in Sydney, Australia, and she serves as Foundation Franz Weber's representative in Australia and project manager for two exceptional sanctuaries, the Wild Horse Sanctuary in Bonrook in Australia and the Sanctuary Equidad for rescued horses in Argentina. So she's going to give us a good presentation, I'm sure. She was great last year. And again, just so everyone remembers, your video and your microphones are muted. So if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat and we will get to them after her presentation. So thank you again, Viktoria, for being here.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the intro. So welcome everyone to my presentation about the Wild Horse Sanctuary Bonrook in the Northern Territory, Australia. So, how can I navigate? So just an overview a little bit of the topics today. So I will be giving you a little bit of an introduction first about Fondation Franz Weber. Also, just note, it's actually not a spelling or typo, a spelling mistake or typo. We do use the French version of foundation, so we say Fondation Franz Weber. And it is, yeah, so just a note. Then I'm going to go a little bit into the background of the Australian wild horse. And then a lot of information about our Wild Horse Sanctuary Bonrook, including some examples of rescue cases from this year, and also why Bonrook matters. Now, next slide. So a little bit about Fondation Franz Weber, also abbreviated as FFW. So it is a Swiss animal welfare and nature preservation non-for-profit organization. And we do have offices in Bern and Montreux in Switzerland. So it's an originally like Swiss and Swiss-based organization with offices there, but we do operate across the world globally. It was founded in 1975 by the Swiss ecologist Franz Weber. You can see a photo of him when he was, so this is like from the 80s. And then it is led by, or it was led by Franz Weber and supported by his wife, Judith Weber, until 2013. And then it was taken over by their daughter, Vera Weber, who is now the CEO and the president of the foundation. So since 2014, she has been leading it. And so, as I said, so we manage a diverse range of projects and campaigns in Switzerland and globally to protect animals and nature. And that includes unique landscapes, trees and forests. That's mainly, or a big focus as well in Switzerland. So we've rescued many forests and trees from getting cut down. Then against bullfights, and also we protect the African elephant. And we own two sanctuaries. So one is the Wild Horse Sanctuary Bonrook in Australia, and the other one is the Sanctuary Equidad in Argentina. And there we have rescued or abused domestic horses. So no wild horses over there, just domestic horses and other animals. So it's a bit of a wider range of different animals like pigs and wild pigs and goats and llamas and dogs. So it's a bit wider. So we have about 160 animals there. But now back to Bonrook. So now also a little bit more background. So in the 1980s, this is a picture of Franz Weber and Brigitte Bardot, who she just passed away last month, and Franz Weber actually passed away in 2018. And this is a photo of them when they were campaigning against the mass killings of baby seals in Canada. So it's a beautiful old picture. Now, the origins of the Australian wild horse. So horses and cattle arrived in Australia with the first white men. Let's not forget this, with the first British fleet in 1788. So they arrived with the first fleet. So I think it's very important to remember this. And so they're not like came much later or anything, but with the first invaders, basically. So horses were used for transport, farming, breeding, and later in World War One, where from there the whaler horse came. So I don't know if you heard that name. The whaler horse is like an Australian bred horse that developed from imported stock, named after the state New South Wales. So that's the state where Sydney is in. And then they were exported and used in World War One, and they were very valued for their strength and endurance and resilience in hard conditions. And very important to know that today's Brumbies, so the wild horse of Australia, descends from those horses that escaped or strayed or were released, and they're sharing the same colonial ancestry. So we can say that Brumbies are not invaders, but they're living descendants of a long history of human and horse partnership. And their historical and ecological significance really calls for their recognition and respect and protection, instead of just saying they're invaders, they are feral, they are destroying the native landscapes, and just like giving them such a bad name, where they should be recognized for what they've actually given to humans. Now to Bonrook. So the creation of the Wild Horse Sanctuary Bonrook. In 1987 and 1988, Franz Weber was contacted for help regarding the Australian government's organized helicopter shootings. So these were brutal massacres of thousands of Brumbies. And mind you, that was organized by the Australian government. And as you know from recent news, the Australian government is still doing this today in different parts of, in different parts of Australia, not where we are operating in the north, but so that's still an issue. And so back then, so they were raising awareness and they exposed the Brumby massacres to the world by an international campaign, and that brought all that cruelty in these atrocities to global attention. And then in November 1989, FFW purchased the cattle ranch Bonrook Station in the Northern Territory, Australia, and transformed it into so-called Franz Weber territory, which then became a safe haven for Brumbies and native wildlife. And we still use the word Bonrook, so as short, we just say Bonrook. It's the same thing as Franz Weber territory. It's just a bit of a longer word. So I use that interchangeably, or we all do. So then until 2004, Bonrook even featured a hotel and a restaurant, and until 2008, a bed and breakfast, and then offered also commercial horseback riding until 2010. And so since 2010, all that has shut down. There is no commercial or no horseback riding. There's no tourism. There is no hotel or anything. It's really just a focus on like just the sanctuary. Like, yeah. And people can come and visit if like you make an appointment with the station manager. But it's not just like an open thing, and that's like a lot of people coming in and out. It's very quiet. Then next slide. So here's that nice photo from 1989. So that's Franz Weber and his wife Judith in the Northern Territory just before they purchased Bonrook Station. So what is Bonrook actually? So Bonrook is the Wild Horse Sanctuary Bonrook is the only protected reserve in the country where a significant population of Brumbies can live in safety, roaming freely in their family groups, so undisturbed and unhandled. So just remember, so we're not breaking these horses in, they're not even halter broken in. We can go maybe about 50 meters close to them in the bush, and then they run off. So they're really wild, and we don't sell them. We quite often get a request from people asking if they can buy Brumbies from us, and no, we don't. They're not for sale. So we just keep them to live in freedom until they naturally die from a natural death. And it's a very big area, so it's 495 square kilometers. That's about 11 miles by 17 miles. So just to put that in perspective. And it's protected, fenced, natural subtropical bushland. And so just for as a comparison, so the size of Bonrook is about as big as the island Ibiza. So if you've ever been to Ibiza, then you would have an idea how big it is. And it is located about 220 kilometers, which is about 140 miles south of Darwin in the Northern Territory. And that's near the township Pine Creek. And it is owned and fully funded by donations raised by Fondation Franz Weber. And here's some photos. So here you can see like how it's fenced. So these are like, it's like a gate here, and then it's another gate. So on the gates, we always have signs, make it very clear that this is like privately owned land. There's no shooting allowed. There's no fires allowed. Here we have some new signs on the right side. Also telling people that we do have trail cameras, so like motion censored cameras, which is surveillance way. In one way for the animals, but also to view the animals, but also to see if other like people going in, and then also drone surveillance. And then at the bottom left is our original archway, which was built in the beginning, in the 80s or 90s. So wildlife on Bonrook. So we have about 800 brumbies on our land that roam freely in their family groups, undisturbed and unhandled. You can see on the right side a photo that actually I took from a helicopter. So we did in October 2023, we did an aerial surveillance count and counted all these animals. And so this is a photo from there, and you can see the horses walking there on their little path. And just to say this up front, it looks very, very dry here because it is very dry here that month. So that's the driest month of the year, which is October. And so we chose specifically that day month to count the animals and to fly over the land, because you can actually see something. Because when it's like the wet season, you can't see anything. It's so bushy, it's so dense, so lush. So we wouldn't be able to count any animals. So because it looks like they have nothing to eat, but you know they get thinner during certain times, and then they fatten up as soon as the rain comes again. And they're used to this climate. So then we also counted about 120 wild cattle, about 100 water buffaloes. And we know that we have, well, we didn't count them flying, but we know we have over 150 bird species. And we have numerous native species of wildlife, and that includes rare and endangered native species, which we see all the time. And what we can say is that all these animals coexist harmoniously in natural balance on Bonrook. So we have a living example that is very unique to Australia, and where we can see all these animals coexisting together for so long, for almost 40 years now. And we can prove that these animals do not destroy native flora nor fauna. And yeah, so yeah, just the numbers just to give, because it's calculated from the helicopter. We flew over the whole land for like 8 hours in grid lines. Of course, it could be that certain animals migrated down by the time we got there, so we would have maybe counted them double. That's why there is like a margin of error of like 10%, but we're still confident that these numbers are about correct. Yeah, because we were 2 people counting and then the helicopter pilot. And he was helping spotting animals too. So here we have beautiful photos from our land. And here you can see very well the different seasons. So for example, the top left picture, very lush, very green. That would have been like in the wet season. So that could have been maybe like February, March, we're in April when it's really wet. And then on the right side top, you see a beautiful foal and almost like camouflaged into the land so that it's, you know, kind of protected. And it's very dry there. So that's more the dry season. And as you go down, you can see like the different, yeah, more like drier areas, because that's the time where we can actually go out in the land and take photos. So most of our photos from the Brumbies are in dry season. So because otherwise you get bogged with the car and you don't get far. So and then we can't take photos. So most of our photos are not as lush as this one. This must have been like closer to the homestead or just towards the end of the wet season when it wasn't that wet. So beautiful horses with yearlings and stallion here, like a lead alpha stallion. And some more photos. Again, also you see on the top left, billabong, and then the horses are very interested. So when you drive out, they come closer, actually, like this, maybe that distance. So they want to know. They're very inquisitive, very interested, but then still scared, and then run off. But you can, yes. And some of these photos, of course, are like zoomed in, so we're a little bit further away than it actually looks like. So you can see also the colors, like different, very diverse, from like dark brown or black, dark brown, light brown, palominos, pintos, like or paint colors. So yeah. That. And some more photos here. So these are also not native animals that we have on the land. So we have the water buffaloes and then some other bulls and cattle. And you can see on the bottom left, also these bulls are the Brahmins. So we have in Australia some like Brahmin cattle that have been brought here also for the meat industry. And so they get usually, when they're like for the meat industry, they get exported on boats to Afghanistan or somewhere in Asia to get slaughtered. So obviously on our land, whatever is on our land that somehow escaped from wherever they came from and came to our land are safe. So no one can remove them, no one can kill them. We protect them just as much as the Brumbies, and they live just free on the land. And then a few examples of native animals at Bonrook. So obviously the kangaroo. Then we have the frilled neck lizard on the top right, quite impressive. And then the Mertens water monitor and also dingoes. So we do have a natural population of dingoes, which also is a natural predator for like horses or like small horses or like foals young horses or weak horses, but we leave them as well. We do no poisoning, no 1080 and all that stuff that's going on in Australia. We don't do any of this, and so there is a natural population of the dingoes as well. And then we have native bird species, many different birds. And here you can see on the top left, beautiful brolga with the red head, then the bush turkey, and then the emu. So emu is actually very rare on our land, so we don't see it often. But we actually just had one going through our land or staying a little bit on our land by himself, actually. So this is actually a stock photo because we couldn't get a good photo of him. But he was there for a few months and then he migrated somewhere else. And then also the black jabiru on the bottom left is also called the black-necked stork. And then a beautiful Bower's bird's nest that you can see here. So the bower bird makes beautiful nests on the ground and to attract females. And what we also can say, we have never seen like a destroyed bird's nest like that. So the horses wouldn't run through these nests. So it's something very important to say because that's a reason what certain like groups like the Invasive Species Council or something claims that the horses like trample certain nests of, so like the broad-toothed rat, for example, like they say that it destroys their nests because they also like nests on the ground. But we do know that these horses don't run through these nests. Like they go around. So horses, they're not like other certain animals that maybe just trample through stuff. So I want to be very careful here. And then some rare and endangered native wildlife at Bonrook. So locally rare, so in our area that's usually rare, is the northern brown snake, or like on Bonrook. But after 20 years now, a couple of years ago, the brown snake came back to Bonrook, which is actually a good thing. Although it's a very poisonous and dangerous snake, you would think, oh, you don't really want that on your land. But it's also, it shows like how healthy our land is and then what natural balance it is, that it has been seen again now, or it hadn't been seen for 20 years, and now it's come back onto our land. And then also the hooded parrot on the top left, a very special little bird that nests in termite mounds, and is very, very clever. And so we had like ornithologists coming for like weeks to actually record and document this beautiful bird, because they knew that we have them on our land just naturally. And they came and did like this whole thing a few years ago, and we're so happy that they could film it, these birds. So because they're very rare. And then also endangered species, we have the northern quoll and also the golden finch. So these are examples. And so a lot of people always ask, like, you know, about the ecological balance on Bonrook. And so we can really say, based on nearly 40 years of experience, that the brumbies pose no threat to Australian native flora or fauna. And we even have like a governmental like proof of that. So every 3 years, the Northern Territory Government Department of Lands, Planning and Infrastructure conducts a health check on Bonrook's land. And every year consistently, we get ratings from like very good to good. And so that proves that the horses have no negative impact on the native flora or fauna. And like, just let that sink in. So it's basically a government institution that has to do these checks on these lands. And they're coming out and on their terms, doing their checks, and they're confirming that our land is healthy. So what does that say? You know, we have about 800 horses running around, and the land is intact, and it's positive. It's the soil is fertile, and everything is good. So, and it's actually, yeah, really important to notice that there are lots of benefits that horses bring to the land. So they actually, brumbies play a vital ecological role. So through their grazing, they control plant overgrowth, for one. Then they also reduce dense and dry vegetation. And with that, they decrease bushfires or bushfire risk. And we have a big bushfire risk in Australia because there's a lot of dry vegetation, and, you know, people do burn-offs, or they forget for years to do certain controlled burn-offs, and or don't do it, or don't have the money from the government, and then massive fires start. So we had massive fires a few years ago in Australia. I'm sure you heard about it in the news. And horses are natural, like bushfire risk, what do you call it? Or just, yeah, help against the bushfire risk. And also by eating coarse plants, they recycle vegetation and make more nutritious plants accessible to other herbivores. So imagine the horses eat certain dry grass and dry coarse plants from like the top, and where there's no sunlight is coming to the bottom of it. When they eat that up, the sun can shine here, more grass can come at the bottom, and other herbivores can eat that. So it's such a balance, you know, it's such a biodiversity like that just works together, right? So it's very important to remember that these horses are so they're used to the land, and the land is used to them. So it's become its natural balance. And another very important point is their manure. So their manure forms a nutrient-rich humus that improves soil quality and promotes native plant growth, strengthens microbial life, and supports water retention. I mean, we know how good that is from like hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So it's such a nutritious material. And through their semi-nomadic movement, because they walk around so many like different areas and always move around, horses disperse seeds and promote natural vegetation regeneration and support biodiversity across the landscape. And that's maybe not as important for Bonrook because we're not that big. But it's very important to notice this for other areas, like, for example, the Kosciuszko National Park, which is at the minute or the last few years, the target of the government to extinct almost all the Brumbies, right, where they really want to kill all the horses. And it's very important, like these points are very important to note for that, because that land has benefits thanks to the horses. And if you remove them, yeah, who knows what's going to happen then. So they are magnificent natural gardeners. Also, a lot of questions that we get is like, how can you keep a natural balance, or like a natural population control of the horses? And so we can confirm that we do have a stable Brumby population over the past 35 years. I mean, there's maybe some sort of fluctuations here and there, but we're not like exploded to like 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 horses. Like we're just have 800 horses. And we can say that it has something to do with the seasonal climate challenges, yes. So the Northern Territory is in a harsh subtropical environment, and that naturally regulates Brumby population. So there are times, seasons where it's very, very dry, like you saw, and then that's a time where they kind of like thin out a little bit. And then we have other times where we have like monsoon rains where it's flooding. So there's definitely that, where maybe other areas in Australia don't have that. So that could be a reason. Then also, like I mentioned earlier, we have the dingoes that play definitely a role in regulating horse population, because they do prey on small foals or very old and weak horses. But also to note, we don't have any wildcats nor foxes on our land. That's just naturally in that area, they don't exist, which would obviously also be more other natural predators, but we don't have them. And just to note, we don't poison anything. So again, saying that they're just not on our land. And then the other, and that's probably like the main reason, what we think is why we have such a stable population is we had actually, so we found out that they have a shorter natural lifespan than domestic horses. So domestic horses, they can get up to like 33. I know a horse that's like 33 years old. So that exists, where we found out that their average age is about 15 years. And we know that because in 2006, a French equine dentist came on our land, and he measured 30 Brumby skeletons. So over like a year before, so he announced he was going to come. And then Sam was over, so that's the station manager, sorry, who I'm going to come to in a minute. But our station manager then was checking like where skeletons were just from natural death, and marked it on a map. And then when he came to visit, they visited all these different spots, and he measured the teeth of 30 Brumbies and came to that result that their average age is about 15 years. And so on the right side, you can see a photo of some dingoes that are actually here licking some salt blocks. And I'm going to come to that in a minute. And in the background, you also see a one-way gate, and I'll come to that in a minute as well. So, but first, the management of Bonrook. So in the middle, you have our amazing CEO and president, it's Vera Weber, who's based in Switzerland. And then on the right side, you have Sam, who is our Bonrook station manager, and he has been on site managing Bonrook since 1996, so 30 years. And that's pretty remarkable. And we're very happy to have him there managing it all. And then I'm also here, so I am based in Sydney. So, but I've been with the foundation since 2015, and originally started working at the offices in Switzerland, and then moved to Australia, and I've been on the project since 2020. So already also 6 years. And I go up to so I manage it basically from remotely, and I go up there about 3 times a year to help Sam like hands-on, and to really work and plan things and go deeper. So yeah, so a very important task for Sam is to maintain the 95 kilometer, which is about 60 miles, boundary fence. So that's very important to keep that safe, because with the water buffaloes, especially because with their big horns and their thick skin, they really can walk through fences, even like barbed wire, and that always has to be fixed and upgraded. It's a continuous task, which obviously can not be done during the wet season because you can't go so deep into the land, but the other seasons where you can, it's a big task and a big focus of his work. Then we ensure that there is sufficient water sources. So we build and equip bores and dams to make sure that the horses and all the animals have enough water. And we ensure that the Brumbies receive mineral and salt blocks because the land is so harsh. It doesn't have a lot of minerals and salt in the soil. So that's another thing we interfere with, I would say. But then when that's it with the horses, so the rest is on them. And then we collaborate with Indigenous groups. So a couple of years ago, we started to relocate some of the neighboring Brumbies to Bonrook using one-way gates for passive transfer. So the photo you saw earlier, and actually it's gonna come here again. Yeah, I'll show you where, because some horses are outside of the land, right? So it's that whole area has horses. And imagine it's like just this massive, big, vast land. And so our sanctuary is just a small bit in that massive bush. And some horses are outside, so we want to get them into our land, onto our land, so they're definitely safe, because God knows what happens outside of the sanctuary. And so we were collaborating with this Indigenous group that owns the land all on the east side and the south side of our land. And these one-way gates are great, so the horses go through, and then we have them on our land. Then we also do land surveillance supported by trail cameras and drones. And also very important, crucial task for Sam is the manage of fire safety with controlled burn-offs. And there's a very impressive photo of him. So that was last year where, there was a controlled burn-off. And so you do that to make sure that the too dry land doesn't get out of control, and then it sparks a fire at some point and everything goes out of control. So certain areas get burned, so it's all controlled. Here's a beautiful photo. So you can see this is taken from a trail camera, a motion sensor camera from our land. So you can see some Brumbies licking the mineral salt blocks, and one horse standing literally in the one-way gate coming from the neighboring land inside. So he's still thinking about it, but we lure them in with these mineral and salt blocks, and then because they sniff it out and they want to come over. Then we also have another section, basically, or work stream on Bonrook, which is the rescue horses at Bonrook. So we rescue and relocate Brumbies and domestic horses from the area. So besides the 800 Brumbies that live in the wild, like in the bush on the rangelands, we have currently 20 old riding and or rescue or orphan horses. Or we had 2 orphan foals so far. So Brumbies or domestic from around the region that live on our paddocks of the homestead. And these horses get daily care and feeding. So some of these horses you can touch and others you can't. So I'll go a bit more detail into here. So for example, here is a photo of retired riding horses or rescue horses. And so this is during the dry season, there's no grass. So this is just like a feeding paddock. So they can go much, much bigger, much wider, much like a bigger area of space. But here they're getting some hay. And then on the right side, that's actually me with 2 of the old, like retired riding horses or rescue horses doing some water therapy. So one had like a wound on a leg, and the water is like very clayey, and it really helped to kind of heal off that wound. It's very interesting. And the other one had like big bloated bellies, and that helped his digestion in his belly. And that's like in one of our dams that we built. And these horses are very old and calm, and so you can do this stuff. And then also like they're grooming each other here on the bottom right, very beautiful. And then this is like another group within those 20 horses that I was just mentioning. These are like rescue horses, like semi-wild horses. And in the back, the pinto colored one is a Brumby stallion. So these horses you can't touch actually at all. You can get maybe like just you can reach out to the hand or something to their head, and then they kind of back off. They don't want to be touched. You can't groom them or anything, because they were station horses like a long time ago. So the front three here, as an example, are geldings. So they must have been at some point handled and broken in, but they've just become wild because they've been roaming around for so many years, that they remember kind of like the human interaction and they like the food, but you can't really handle them. And then the one in the very back, we actually wrote a beautiful story about him in one of our magazines. That's a Brumby stallion. We call him Dandy. And we rescued him when he's obviously really wild. You cannot even get closer than how he's standing now, about like 6 meters or something. And he was like emaciated when we found him in Pine Creek, so in the little township next to Bonrook. And he was coming into the town to feed on like the fresh grass, and he was so thin, like he was so sick, or just underfed. So he wasn't actually sick, because we then were able to transport him, like load him onto our trailer and bring him onto land. And then within 3 months he fattened up, like he looks beautiful here. I mean, he's been here already probably over a year when we took this photo. But even the transformation was incredible, from very emaciated to healthy and fat. So, and then just a couple examples, last year's rescues. So this is an orphan foal, with Maluka. So he was mauled by wild dogs in an Aboriginal community. And if you zoom in or look closer in the photos, you can see actually all his bite wounds, like on his legs and on his face and his neck. So he must have been like born, and then wild dogs came, attacked him, and then the mother ran off, couldn't protect him. And then someone from the Aboriginal community like took him in, and then it called us, and then we took him over. So here on the bottom left, that's Sam, after a very hot day, transporting him and bringing him to our land. And then after a few months, he has his daddy Dizzy, like one of our geldings. We brought him together with him because we didn't know if the other geldings would beat him up or anything. So it was a very gentle introduction, and he's very happy with Dizzy. And then there's also a photo of me with him, just having a little meditation session, because he definitely still has a lot of trauma from those early attacks and that violence. So he needs a lot of healing, but he found a really good place with us. And then another example from last year. So here we have a mother and a foal. We call them Jeannie and Elsie. So Jeannie the mother, and Elsie the foal. And also same situation. She was the foal was attacked by the wild dogs from the Aboriginal community, but the mother was still there, and they were able to put her in a yard. So that's the first photo on the top left, in the Aboriginal community. And then we were notified, went down. So it's about a 3-hour drive down, one way, and then pick them up. And she has like some wounds as well in the face, you can see. And then the bottom two photos are on Bonrook land, and she's sleeping there, very cute. And these horses obviously we take care of. We feed them and everything, and these we will be probably able to like touch after a while more. So the mother is a bit protective, but and also like there's no breaking in, or and these horses probably won't let out in the wild because they get so used to our food, and so we just take care of them. And the last point I'd like to cover is, so why actually Bonrook matters. So we can say that we are a very unique sanctuary. So the only sanctuary in Australia where a significant population of Brumbies can live in safety and roaming freely in their family groups, undisturbed and unhandled. So there's different Brumby groups and Brumby associations and Brumby advocates that they rescue Brumbies from certain areas where they are targeted to be shot. But these people do break them in, and they do sell them and use them, as riding horses, where we really are the only ones that just leave them on this land in their natural habitat, being free. So we are a legacy of compassion. So almost 40 years of offering protection, safety, and dignity to wild horses. And we are a model, or actually a role model for harmony. So we demonstrate that Australian wild horses harmoniously coexist with native wildlife and ecosystems. So based on nearly 40 years of experience, we can confirm that the wild horses pose no threat to Australian native flora or fauna. And so that's the end of my presentation. And thank you very much for your attendance and your interest. Here's my contact information. You can email me if you have any more questions, or if you're coming to Australia and you'd like to come visit us. Also, 2 more links. So one link is to our website, Bonrook, to the project website. You can learn a bit more, or I guess I told you everything already. And the other link is to all our projects and campaigns. So if you go on our website and then under our commitment, you can find the overview of all our projects. So I open up for questions then, if anyone wants to share something.
Thank you so much, Victoria, not just for the wonderful presentation, but for all the great work that you and your team do. And I think that that's what really everybody is saying in the chat, just how wonderful it is. And it really is a great model. And I think something that we can even reference here, that you've got 40 years of, these ecosystems being sustained very well by these horses. So thank you again for all of that. People really enjoyed the photos. They enjoyed the presentation. Let me see if anybody has. Yeah, does anybody have any questions for Victoria? Everyone's just saying really great place, great presentation. Thank you for sharing. But now it doesn't seem like, I know you said that the government comes in and they assess the land, and that was very important too. But do they pay attention to that? Because like you said, they're still doing the helicopter shootings of the Brumbies on the other side.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, it almost seems like the country's very disconnected. I mean, it's a very big country, right? So it's as big as the US, but only has about 25 million people. But it feels very disconnected, and it seems like they're all working in silos, even though we have a government institution that is saying one thing, but then they're not using that to argue against the Invasive Species Council, for example, that is all like pro the animal shootings, the horse, the Brumby shootings. So it's honestly, I sometimes feel like there is something else behind it to get rid of these horses than actually the horses. But I don't think we can say that. So.
Was your sanctuary affected by the recent fires at all?
No. So the fires that were, or there were some fires just now in the south, more like in Victoria. And so that's a very different area. And we've never actually had on Bonrook like an actual, like out of control wildfire. So Sam has been really good with managing every year the controlled back burns. And through that, thanks to that, we've never had an out of control fire.
Have other sanctuaries reached out to you, or have there become other sanctuaries in Australia that are trying to model the work that you guys are doing at all?
Well, yes, I'm working a lot with all these different Brumby groups, and it's a whole other thing. and there are some other groups that are doing, but very different. Like I said, they break them in and they want to sell them. They still do great work. Like some in contact with a woman who's in Queensland who rescued some horses from Kosciuszko National Park. But then, you know, she breaks them in and sells them. So it's a different concept than what we do. So we just leave them there and not make them into any like riding horses or any benefit for humans.
Um, just everyone's just really, I think, kind of in awe of the work that you guys do and how wonderful the sanctuary is. I know a lot of people said they wanted to come and visit. Do you have any connection with any of the members of the Animal Justice Party, Emma or Georgie?
So not directly, but because I think it's also so you mean Emma Hurst, yeah. So I sent an email once to Emma and I actually never got a reply because if there's something we can do, but I don't know exactly her position on the Brumbies. I thought something has changed. So I can actually follow up on that. That's actually something on my list for this year to see like if there's more we can do to just really bring I was also trying to reach this uh, what's her name? What's her name? I forgot her name, but she's a journalist. I forgot her name now. It just left me. But I emailed her because she was talking on Sky News, because she's a very animal, like a horse lover, and she was just at Kosciuszko National Park riding. That was last year, and she heard about all the massacres, and she was really giving her voice against it. And I thought, oh, finally, someone is like really talking about it, because there was also a ban, a media ban, to talk about the Brumby shootings, where that's why a lot of people don't even know about it. So I don't know if that's still going on, but the journalists weren't allowed to talk about it, and they didn't talk about it. So this woman, Tonini is her last name, Tonini, and someone from her team or whatever responded saying, yes, we're interested, we will get back to you, but then they never did. So that's another thing I need to follow up on, because she seemed very vocal, and I invited her in the email to come see our land and see our sanctuary, see our work, and then maybe, you know, broadcast that or show that in the media and show that this is possible. Of course, like in a way, you have to be careful as well to not become a target, but we will, yeah. Because here it seems like a lot of things are going on that, yeah, it's not right.
It would seem like a great place for like a National Geographic story also. I'm surprised that you haven't heard from people on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're going to be now in a book next year from a Japanese like photographer. He's putting us in a book about all the wild horses in the world, and so that's going to be quite a nice exposure. But yeah, National Geographic, that could be something, a piece. They actually did a piece on Equidad, the sanctuary in Argentina, so I can see if there is any contacts.
So how tall are the Brumbies? And when they are domesticated, what activities do their adopters do with them? Like, do they do trail riding or driving or?
Actually, I'm not really sure because I've never broken in a Brumby and we don't really do it, but I think they just use them as riding horses. They're very popular, actually. They're very intelligent. And so that's what I heard from some people that have Brumbies. And they go riding, I guess that's it. They're not really needed for transport these days. And how tall they are, I think it bit depends. Also, I feel like the horses in Kosciuszko look a bit different than our horses. So, but yeah, like they're not hugely tall, actually. I feel like they're not like, what is it, maybe like maybe 160, like the neck bone there. That's probably like the average, I'd say.
Are are there any conservation groups there that are learning from you or that you're working with?
No, actually, we're not really we're actually not really doing that. Is something we should really look into, yeah.
Um, Do you, the Japanese photographer is still working on the book, correct?
Yeah.
And will
And I
the
think Mhm.
will like sales from the book help your organization?
No, we it's fine. Like we just he's just gonna pay us a little bit of money, just like a lump sum per per page that we're so it's about we're doing I think 3 pages and he's just giving us a lump sum. It's fine. Yeah.
Are there other ways that people can help support your group?
Yeah, on the website. So if you go on our website, there is a link everywhere you can see donate. So if you go and switch to English, so make sure that you're, I think on the top left, you see the navigation, the different languages. You switch to English and so that you can understand what's happening. But then you'll see a button that says donate. So you can pay with different credit cards, PayPal, everything. And so that will just go to the organization as such, but you can write in the comments that you want the money to go to to Bonrook, and then it go to whatever project you want to support, of course. You can look at other projects, and then the money goes to that specific project or a sanctuary.
How did this get started? So was it just like a passion project? You have like a little bit of the back history on that?
So basically what I explained at the beginning of the presentation, that it started with, oh yeah, it's basically what I said in the beginning. So basically, because the Brumby shootings were alerted Franz Weber to then come to the country and have a look and see this, and then have the idea to buy a cattle ranch and transform it into a sanctuary. So that was it. It wasn't necessarily just like a passion project in a sense, but it was needed. It was needed like a place to have a sanctuary and a safe haven for these horses. And yeah, so that's why. I hope that
Was
answers the question.
is it all privately funded, or did he get any help from the government at all to open up the sanctuary, or
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, so it's all funded by fundraising by the foundation. So we write quarterly magazines about all our projects that get sent to thousands and tens of thousands of donors. And they're 95% from Switzerland, and they pay basically for all our projects. So it's all done by fundraising. So no government. It's a not it's an NGO. So we don't get government funding. Certainly not from Australia.
I didn't think so, but I just wanted to clarify that. It's just amazing again all the work that you guys are doing. So thank you again for everything that you do, and thank you for sharing this presentation with us today. Does anybody else have any questions before Victoria goes? I think people are just happy to for all the work that you're doing. So this is wonderful. So thank you again, and we appreciate you being here and being part of our summit.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope this could be, yeah, like a leading example of how it's possible. But of course, it needs a lot of funds to create a land like that. I don't know if something like this exists in the US where someone could buy like a big land and have horses there. Is that actually question that I have? Is there a project something similar like this in the US?
I think that we have some sanctuaries here, and we did actually have a presentation from Scott Beckstead with the Wild Horse Refuge, where they've got, I know, different species of animals, cohabitating together and stuff there too. Skydog Sanctuary is also another, someone said Skydog Sanctuary. I don't know how much, I don't know that they're doing the research like your organization is doing, you know what I mean, for the land health and all that. I know that Scott had said that they have people coming in, checking range health and things like that on a regular basis. So I would think it's kind of similar, possibly.
And they're also wild there. They leave the horses wild or break them in.
they're wild, but they're horses that they get from the Bureau of Land Management in Colorado. And so
Mm.
there's no reproduction, so they don't have that. But then it also helps, I guess in the balance, continue to bring horses in as they can um, do that. We also had a really great presentation from Mark on a burro sanctuary. And that was, I think everybody was very impressed with that too. And it probably would be something maybe similar along this range, possibly.
Maybe I can connect with them. Just it would be good to maybe have some exchange and just, see what they're doing, maybe learn from each other. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I'll follow up with you on that just to get the contact.
Okay, yeah, no problem. I can email you their contact information for
Oh,
sure.
great. Thank you. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you again very much. And thank you everyone for being here. And we'll be back tomorrow with some more presentations. So I hope to see everybody then. Thank you again,
Great.
Victoria. This was great. And again, thank you so much for all the work that you do.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you everyone for attention. Speak soon. Bye.
Bye.